business and campus and friends. I mean, whenever I would go to class, after my first year, going to class was just more time on my business. I just took out my computer and I was working on my business, whatever business that was at the time. Yeah, because it did, there's been an evolution throughout the 4 years, but that's what I would do. 100% of the time, days I would have to take the test, fine, I'll take the test. I get the 70%, whatever. I really don't care. No studying outside of class. It was all business, 100% of the time.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 5 of Take the Next Step. I'm your host, Ryan Sterling. In this podcast, each week I interview someone who's taken on some sort of personal growth journey. And it's my job to dissect that journey one step at a time. I'm super excited to share with you this week's guest. This week I interviewed Jordan Paris. Jordan is huge in the podcasting community. He has a top 15 podcast called Growth Mindset University, where he's interviewed some really big names over the years. He's interviewed James Altucher, Ryan Serhant, Mark Manson, Seth Godin, Gretchen Rubin, David Meltzer, Charlie Jabaley, and so many more. Jordan also owns a thriving business. He's been featured in Forbes, he's a published author, and he's a soon-to-be TED speaker. And he literally just turned 23. I mean, to say Jordan is driven is an understatement. We talk about so much in this episode. We talk about the importance of being intentional with time. We talk about Jordan's story of starting the podcast and starting the business and how he had to pivot a number of times. And we talk about just having intense focus and how when you focus on something, you can make it a reality sooner than you think. It's a really good episode. I really appreciate Jordan sharing his time with me and sharing his story, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to Jordan Paris on episode 5 of Take the Next Step. I'll see you there. So it's funny, I was thinking about how you and I got connected for the first time. And I was thinking back, and it's funny, I realized the point where I first came across your name, and I'm going to show you something.
Yeah, please.
Okay, ready for it? I hope this is you. I'm pretty sure this is you. But you posted this.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that?
Just, obviously not something, just one of those viral things that goes around the internet every now and then. Yeah.
Totally. So you didn't come up with this?
No.
Okay. But here's the thing. You posted it and I saw it. I was like, it landed with me right away. And I actually saved it because I thought it was so powerful.
Wow.
And I was like, who's this Jordan dude? So we ended up connecting on LinkedIn. And I think that's how we originally got connected. Yeah.
That must have been, trying to think when I posted this, maybe less than a year ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I feel like it was like maybe a year ago.
Yeah, perhaps. I know there was like, it was 2 days in a row, it seemed. I posted like images like these that I just came across that both went like pretty viral.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know, I've always questioned the and I don't do that. It's exclusively original content that I'm posting. It's very rare that I'll repost something like this, but I always question the value of going viral on the internet. And obviously there's levels to it. I mean, for me, viral is like over 100,000 views.
So what did this get?
And so, yeah, I think that's what that did. Got a few thousand likes and over 100,000 views. And yeah, I've just wondered, like, what is there any value to that other than like a short pop in the metrics, like a little spike in the metrics? I mean, what's the value of that?
Well, got you on this podcast, man.
But it's cool to see, like, there's a real human connection value to me posting that, like this, 100%. Like something actually came of that.
Yeah. I mean, this was not like a grand plan of mine. I saw it. I'm like, this is totally landing with me. and I saved it because I wanted to remember it. And I even think you even said like, this is not something I came up with. This is something I'm reposting. But I've actually, so I'll ask you right now, like, am I good to repost that and send it under mine? Because I think it's, because again, it's one of those things, like I didn't take it as, this is actually interesting to hear your perspective behind it. Because from my perspective of the consumer of that content, I actually found it really helpful, and I appreciated you sharing that. And I've shared it with other people, and they've thought the same thing. Because it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I'm a money guy. That's my brand. That's my business. So being able to, and part of it is, I work with my clients all the time about, you know, coming up with ways of saving and budgeting. And budgeting gets a bad rap, and it's one of those things where people feel it's constraining. And I completely turn it around. It's like, it's not constraining, it's empowering. And it's not saying no to spending money. It's saying no to spending money on things that provide little value in the long run, and yes to the things that do provide sustainable value. And I think that's what that
image
point
again. Pull up that image.
Because that's what this hits on.
People listening, I want them to have the context. I want to read this here. You've probably seen that. You may have seen the graphic before from someone. Truth bomb, healthy grocery shop, $100, too expensive. Dinner date, $100, that's reasonable. A month of supplements, $100, can't afford that. Night out drinking, $100, weekly occurrence. Personal growth seminar for $250, no, that's crazy talk. Gucci belt, $250, need to have it. Starting a business for $1,000, can't justify that. What are we talking here? iPhone XR, $1,000. The newest model is a necessity. 60 minutes at the gym. I wish I had time. 60 minutes watching Netflix. Time flies. Watch another one. It's all about priorities. And what you prioritize will dictate what your life looks like. Where will you be in 5 years? And I think
I love it.
Yes, prioritizing really where you spend your money. I have friends that spend it at the casino every week, and on eating out every day. I eat out once a week. I don't go to the casino. I don't do the whole partying, $100 night out drinking thing. And, you know, maybe one time doesn't really like 1 week, you know, what's it going to hurt to do that 1 week? It's not going to do anything. I actually did it the other week for the first time in my life. Like, I went to the casino. I didn't actually gamble. I just had Hard Rock and alcoholic ice cream. You know, so it's still like, I don't know. I mean, it was probably a $100 day, but what is one time's not going to do anything. You do that every week, every other week, even once a month, it compounds. This is what the compound effect by Darren Hardy is all about.
100%.
It really adds up. I stay home on a Saturday night, work on my business. That's what I've been doing for years and years and years. And I don't spend the hundreds of dollars at the casino. They're doing that. I mean, not to be like sound condescending, but you know, there's going to be there's a marked difference after a number of years in life and business and monetary results and your bank account. Really,
100%.
Big difference. My bank account was the same as theirs 3 years ago. Now it's not.
It's so well said. And that's the point of this podcast. That's why I call it Take the Next Step, because any journey is accumulation of steps. And I feel like not a day goes by now where people in my network come to me like, how are you doing all of this stuff? Like, how do you have a TED Talk coming out? How do you have a book coming out? How are you launching a podcast? How are you running this company? And it's like, it's just being really intentional with time and not wasting time and saying like, okay, am I going to spend an hour and then running and training for marathons? It's like, am I going to spend an hour scrolling? If I'm going to spend an hour scrolling through social media, I'd much rather put on my running shoes, put on a podcast and go out for a run for an hour. I get the marathon training. It's healthier for me. Like, I feel a billion times better, and I get to learn something from the podcast I'm listening to. Yeah. And it's just like, these are choices we can all make. And I laugh at it because like, I don't feel like I'm killing myself right now. I feel it's just like, I'm not doing things where I'm wasting time, money, and energy.
I feel the exact same way. I honestly don't even work that hard. Totally. Like maybe dude, my business is pretty optimized. And so I do a little bit of fulfillment there, but I have systems to take care of this and people on my team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I do a little bit of fulfillment and maybe a call or two in a day, or, sometimes I have 5 calls in a day, but uh, but other than that, I do actually watch Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was just telling you that. But I have plenty of time to watch Netflix. I have plenty of time to work out. I have plenty of time to cook healthy meals. I have plenty of time to scroll my phone too. I have plenty of time just to like chill out. But I also am, I don't know. I don't like, I'm not partying all the time, and I'm not like drinking and doing drugs all the time, and just wasting my headspace and my time on that kind of stuff that gets you in the wrong frame of mind. And then, I mean, it takes like, it's not just the couple hours that you're drinking for. It's like the next day too. Like you're recovering, and then you're depressed the next day. And then like, there's a multiple day like consequence here that I just really don't wrap myself. When's the last time I drank? I had a beer 2 weeks ago, and before, I mean, that's the only thing I've had in the past like 6 weeks. So
I'll tell you what I do,
but I'm
which
having
is
fun,
super
man.
helpful. Yeah. Oh, look. So I love what I'm doing.
Friends.
So totally. And look, something like this, right? I mean, you and I have never met in person, but I'm really enjoying this conversation so far. We spoke a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this is fun for me, right? I get to learn from people. I get to connect with people who, I haven't known previously. So I just think about like launching this podcast. Like I have a whole bunch of episodes lined up and people who I'm going to be interviewing in the next couple of weeks, people I've never met before. And I'm super excited to learn their story. But I'll tell you one thing that's super helpful is my wife and I have a rule. So we're not Jewish, but we celebrate the Jewish tradition of Shabbat, where work hard throughout the entire week. And I mean, like I was working till midnight last night, and that's not uncommon. But again, I like it. I get into flow state. I usually use the evenings as creative time. Friday at right around 6:30, we put the computers down, we stop work, and between 6:30 on Friday all the way until about 1 on Sunday, it's no work. I don't pick up my phone. I don't reply to emails. My clients know this too. Like I tell them, like, if you send me an email on Saturday, I'm not going to reply. And it's one of those things where it's being very intentional. Like I'm nowhere other than where I am.
Yeah. Well, that's important. That's really good policy. The one that I should probably implement. I just don't know if I have the current discipline to be able to do that. Because I definitely, I'm probably at like 30% of capacity during the weekends. Like I do 30% of what I normally do in terms of work, but it's not zero like you.
Well, that's just Saturday. So Sunday it opens it up. But again, it's one of those things where, again, and my most important job is the relationship that I'm in. And I say job in an intentional way. I mean, it's like my day job. It's not work for me. I obviously love it, but it's one of those things where you want to make sure that you're not ignoring, like I want to make sure that I'm not ignoring the things that are important to me, and to make sure that when I'm in something, I'm truly in something, and have that be non-negotiable. And something like this, it's just helpful to have that time and space where it's like, I know, for example, that I can, again, be working on something till 1 a.m. I'm kind of a night owl, so like that's not uncommon that I'll do that. Knowing that, number one, Friday at 6:30 computers go down, and my wife also knows that, during that time, like it's 100% us.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. When you reiterated Friday at 6:30 and to Sunday at 1, it's really only Saturday.
Yeah, it's just Saturday.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
I heard Friday to Sunday. I was like, I don't know if I could do that.
Sunday's
I don't know if I want to do that. I could. I don't really.
Yeah, no, I usually work on Sunday. I usually put in 6 or 7 hours on Sunday. But again, it's just helpful to know that I have that space on Saturday. But
what's today? Today's Friday. Maybe I really, I totally can do it.
Put it down. Don't even think about it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really powerful, man. It creates that space. And then it's one of those things where, again, like I can grind through the week knowing that, hey, Friday at 6:30, like it's putting the computers down, and it's Netflix, it's a glass of wine, and it's relaxing. So
Nice.
but look, man, so on this, I just look at I've known you for a while. I've known you since that truth bomb, which I really appreciate you sharing a year or so ago. But then I look at who and what you're doing today. So I'm just going to read a couple things here. So you have a top 15 podcast, which is really insanely hard to do. So a top 15 podcast. When I look at the guests that you have, Ryan Serhant, by the way, amazing interview with Ryan Serhant. I loved it.
Thank you.
Charlie Rocket, that was also an awesome one too.
Yeah.
Those are two of my favorites so far. Really good.
Charlie's quite unique.
Totally. I actually want to bring a point that Charlie made up later in this episode. So remind me of that. But Ryan Serhant, Charlie Jabaley, Dean Graziosi, Mark Manson, James Altucher, Gretchen Rubin. I mean, these are big names. I mean, some of the biggest names out there. You're a business owner in a growing business.
I've had Barack Obama on too, actually.
I missed that episode.
Imagine. Seriously, I totally plan on having like both the Donald and Barack Obama on it. Like at some, not together, but actually together might be cool too. But I totally plan on that.
But like, again, kind of going back to, where you are and who you are right now. I mean, again, top 15 podcast, huge guest, business owner, you've been featured in Forbes, TEDx speaker. I know that was canceled due to COVID, but it's gonna happen. But this is all for someone who's 22 years old. So, I mean, you've accomplished a lot. I mean, way more than most kids who are 22 or just graduating from college accomplish. So what I want to do though is like, this is who you are now and where you are now. And I know you're still continuing to grow. And I mean, it's crazy to think where you're probably going to be in 2 years from now, but just even where you are right now, again, super impressive. But what I want to do is take it back though. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of college. Did you walk on campus the first day and say, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to have a top 15 podcast, I'm going to be interviewing James Altucher, Ryan Serhant, Dean Graziosi, Mark Manson, I'm going to be featured in Forbes, I'm going to be doing a TEDx. Was that your plan?
Well, it wasn't in that form. It was more generalized. But I did have a plan.
So you had ambitions of something. You just didn't know what it was. Okay. Okay.
I did. Yeah. I very much.
So what was it? Okay. So you're on campus day one and you're like, okay, I want to do something big by the time so let's actually just dig on that for a second. So what do you think, why do you think you stepped on campus and said, I want to do something big by the time I graduate?
Yeah, just because of my high school experience and not having friends there. And I wanted to, I felt guilty about this, or I felt bad about this. I was like, it's not a good motivation to have. I wanted to prove people wrong. Okay. Not that like there was really anyone to prove wrong. Like, it was really all on me in high school. It was all in my head. Like, it wasn't like people that made my experience so horrible. Like, no, it was all me. So
yeah, I was gonna say, were you bullied in high school? Like, what made your high school experience so bad?
A little bit. I mean, on the football team, absolutely yes. Outside of that team, no, not really. Okay. So, and the football team was only my senior year of high school, so I'm okay. But yeah, I just wanted to like show people that I had worth, and that I was like, that I was cool and smart and all the things like I wish I was in high school, and I was significant, and that you guys missed out. And look, I used to, like I said, I felt bad about the motivation of proving people wrong, but look, that motivation for a lot of people works.
Totally, 100%.
And if you realize later too that maybe it's not the healthiest motivation to have long term, then that's all okay. You got a little bit, you got something out of it. It worked for the time being. You realized it wasn't healthy to continue with that motivation for the rest of your life. Then fine. So I don't really feel bad about that anymore.
Yeah.
So yes, it was very much driven by my high school experience or lack thereof. I just didn't really do anything.
Yeah. But it's interesting because
I sat at home and did nothing.
People have that high school experience when they go to college, though. It could also be like, this is a new, fresh start. I want to find the community that I missed out on here in
That's
college.
what it was. I said fresh start. That's what I wanted.
Okay. But I mean, so was it one of those where, okay, I want to accomplish something. I want to be significant. I want to be a known entity. But then so how was your college experience from a social standpoint? Were you looking for a community in college?
I wanted to have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
For sure. And I aligned myself in all three spheres of campus. The first week I became a student athlete. So I had athlete friends, a lot of them, people on I was watching the basketball team, like in FGCU, like March Madness, like 2 years prior, a year prior, like watching them crush it. And then now I'm like friends with some of these guys.
That's awesome. Okay.
It was cool. Not all
Is that why you went to Florida Gulf Coast?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I had
cool.
friends in that area of campus. Then I ran for president of my residence hall. So I had friends in the student government area. And then I joined a fraternity all in the first week. And so then I had friends in that, all three like main areas of campus there that I really got to experience to the fullest and make friends in. And so right away, it was just this radical change.
Interesting.
It was one of those things where I was looking for.
So it was what you're looking for. So you got what you're looking for. Was it one of those things that you got what you were looking for and it's everything you thought it would be, or was it different than what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, no, my life was pretty good.
Okay.
I had friends. I was doing things all the time. Like,
okay, so you were doing so now you have the significance.
So fun, dude.
You have the community. So but that did not tamper your desire to do something big?
To do something big in the business world, are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, where you are now, like, again, you mentioned that you stepped foot on campus and you're like, I want to do something big by the time I graduate. I want significance. I want to prove people wrong.
Yeah, but
now you have this community.
I got it in a social sense, but I still had the higher ambition of doing it in a business sense. I knew way before college that I wanted to, at that time, I mean, yes, I wanted to work for myself, but I wanted to be a personal trainer with in-home clients in the area. And so I did that. And after the first semester, I studied at home with the NASM textbook that is over there, actually. Yes. And
what's NASM?
National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Okay.
And so 3 weeks, I went all out and went through the entire gigantic textbook and got my certification. I passed the test. And so January of 2017, going into my second semester of college, I have this certification. Now, it took 2 months to actually get my first 2 clients. But once I did, it was my second semester, freshman, and I was all of a sudden making $60 per hour. And I was like, yes, this is the start. Here we go.
But where did that come from, though? Because that's not normal for a college kid.
Well, I don't know. I just had, I really wanted to be a great success.
Are your parents entrepreneurs?
I mean, my dad is a general surgeon who now just has a few practices where he injects knees with hyaluronic acid or stem cells. It's more rare though. So I call him a businessman.
Yeah. For sure.
He also invests in different hospitals and like private investing. I actually just went in with him on my first private investment in a hospital. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. But, and my mom's a nurse. So and then uncles are chiropractors. So, a lot of businessmen.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. Not necessarily entrepreneurs. So, but look, my uncle, he grew up with, and his best friend was someone named Steve Jordan out in Los Angeles, who is a celebrity personal trainer. And he trained Tobey Maguire and Jordan Belfort and Ariana Huffington and Brad Paisley, and I could go on and on and on. And I was like, yeah, I want to have his life. I want to live in LA, and I want to do that. Okay. And so I asked him, I got put in contact with him. I hadn't seen him since I was like 1 year old. And just spent some time with him on the phone and asked him a bunch of questions, wrote some stuff down. I could probably find the notebook somewhere in my parents' house. And I was like, yeah, can I work for you for free this summer? And he said, yeah. And I did. And so I had this great influence, and I learned how to become a world-class personal trainer, not just like a personal trainer in LA Fitness, because there's a difference between an LA Fitness personal trainer and a trainer with their own studio in Los Angeles charging $200 per hour. You can't like little things. You cannot walk in with an Aquafina or a Dasani water bottle if you're charging $200 an hour. You have to have a Fiji water bottle. Like it's brand consistency.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But I learned like the little things like that.
That's interesting.
So I had this great influence that way, which I guess in a way is luck that he was already within my realm of within my network in a way. So
but he taught you how to be a professional.
What's that?
He taught you how to be a professional.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's how I started. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you're doing this personal training thing. Okay. So then what's next? Do you have a couple clients?
Well, I realized that I start to slowly realize that after being out in LA like a lot over the next couple of years.
This was like summers or breaks?
Summers, breaks, and he would go away and I'd actually run his studio, which was really cool. And it was where we're talking about like I could potentially get the studio one day or just buy it out like with the equipment, what the equipment's worth and clientele. But anyway, I started to realize that LA is just really not the place for me. I thought it was in my the romantic vision in my head. I was like, yeah, I want to be there. But I could be a king in Florida, or I could be a poor man in LA, and give like a ridiculous amount of money to the government and just rent. I don't want to pay like $50,000 a year in rent for a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment.
For sure.
I want to live like a king, man.
I lived in LA back in 2000. I moved to LA in 2005. I'm in New York now, but I lived in LA for 4 years, and it's changed a lot. It's definitely more expensive than it used to be. Yeah.
So I don't know. The romantic vision of Los Angeles kind of went away, and also at the same time, I was like, I have to trade my time for money. And I have to be at a location.
How did you know that at such a young age?
Well, because my parents would say like, hey, want to fly up north for the weekend and, or want to come up to come up for Memorial Day or Labor Day. And I'd be like, no, because I was like thinking of, I'm going to miss out on X amount of dollars. I'm not going to be able to go to these people's houses and train them.
Yeah.
And so I felt trapped that way. And I just need the ultimate freedom, the ultimate level of freedom. I cannot feel trapped in any way. I have to have I'm a complete control narcissist.
I can tell.
I gotta have it. I gotta have the control within the palm of my hand. And so
with all this going on,
that exactly. I didn't have someone above me like telling me what to do and how to do my job, which was amazing. A big difference from high school serving job. But I wanted to go to the next level here and be able to live anywhere, go anywhere, anytime.
Were there any books or any influence you had that influenced that type of thinking?
I definitely had, I found that out and started realizing that way before I read Tim Ferriss's book.
See it in the background.
What is it?
4-Hour Work Week.
The 4-Hour Work Week. Duh. Yeah. And it is actually one of my favorite books. I definitely read it late. I may have been a junior in college when I read that book. So really not that.
So the train's already left the station before you've read that.
Yeah. I was really moving in the direction of digital products and services way before reading that book. But that definitely, I would say what that book made me realize is how cheap it is how inexpensive it is to live in other countries for several months at a time. I mean,
for sure.
I don't want to say cheap as in like it's dirt cheap, but I could spend the same amount in in Florida, or I could go to Italy and live there for like the same price. I could go to Bali and have like the sickest place in the world for like $1,100 a month, like with a pool and everything, like an entire villa. Like I started to realize the possibilities of long-term travel from reading that book.
Yeah. So let's take it back then to your actual experience on campus. So you're doing this thing in the personal training world. You're going out to LA. You're learning a lot in terms of real world practical experience.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're a college kid and you're living on campus and you're involved in on-campus activities, making friends. Tell me what that's like.
Business and campus and friends. I mean, whenever I would go to class, after my first year, going to class was just more time on my business. I just took out my computer and I was working on my business, whatever business that was at the time. Because it did, there's been an evolution throughout the 4 years, but that's what I would do. 100% of the time, days I would have to take the test, fine, I'll take the test. I get the 70%, whatever. I really don't care. No studying outside of class. It was all business 100% of the time.
What about your friends, right? Because were your friends thinking the same way that you were thinking?
No, definitely. No.
So how was that?
That's fine because, I like to do the business thing by myself. I'm naturally an introvert and I like to have friends that are there to party with when I can. And so it's provided a good balance over the years that I have. At any time I could go, I have friends I could go party with, they
what
might not
were your
be,
friends looking to
go
do
into
at that
business
time?
with, but
like your friends, like what were their ambitions?
Well, the friends that I keep very close, still today. I mean, one of them is in grad school and, my two best friends were psychology majors.
But they weren't living. I mean, it's not like you had your friends were doing what you were doing. It's not like a community of people who were
I
thinking
didn't have
about creating digital brands, digital businesses. So this was all your own.
I was very alone in that sense.
Okay.
Until I started a podcast, I felt very alone in the world of business. But now with LinkedIn and the network that I've cultivated there, as well as the people that I talk to every single week on the podcast, it's not exactly a lonely experience.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
I can relate. I'm a natural introvert as well, and it's one of those where even though you're introverted, you still like talking to people. Like the reason I love doing this podcast right now is like I love deep conversations with like one or two people at a time. So that's where this is actually like
for sure,
really well suited to what I want to do.
Yeah, me too. I can't do the larger settings with a lot of people. I'm not very good at that. My brain does not feel good when I'm at
But you're probably like me, like I can get up on stage and I can speak and I'm totally fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's very different.
Yeah.
But I like the one-on-one small group conversations, small get-togethers. I like that. But look, parties, speaking of them and bars, they were always very forced. And I had good times every now and then. Look, you meet a girl and it's cool experience. But dude, a lot of times I just wanted to get out of there, man. It's too loud. It's too many people.
But you were doing it because you felt like you should be doing it at the time.
Yeah. And like that definitely happened a lot more in my freshman and sophomore years.
Yeah.
After that, freshman year, I went out every weekend, once or twice a week. I would do it for like Friday, Saturday, or Wednesday, Friday. Because there's a Wednesday bar night that everyone liked to go to, and it got less and less in my sophomore year. And then by the end of sophomore year, I wasn't going out at all. And then as a junior and senior, I just didn't go out.
So I'm
very happy about it. conclude on that my senior year, last semester, right before coronavirus hit, it was, I graduated in May of 2020. I went out with my best friend and his girlfriend. We would all go out to the bar that we went to as freshmen. We did it for like 2-3 weeks in a row. I'm telling you, right before coronavirus hit, and I'm like so happy I did it. Like there was this element, and I had a good conversation with an old cheer teammate because I was on the cheerleading team, an old cheer teammate of mine at the last time I went to the bar, and it was like a good element of closure to it all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
ended on a good note.
So I mean, stuff like that. I mean, for someone who's as driven as you, it's important to have those moments too, right? And not lose sight of that. But so okay, let me just take it back there a little bit. So you're doing the personal training thing. You have a couple clients. You realize this whole thing of trading time for money, and you're in class, and every time you're going to a class, you're not able to work on your business. But you're not a personal trainer today.
No,
so at some point, things shifted. So when does that shift happen?
Well, I as I started to realize that I had to be there, I was tied to a location. I also realized $60 an hour, while it's 6 times more than everyone else my age is making, I'm like calculating to make $3,600, I got to do 60 sessions.
Yeah.
I have to drive back and forth 60 times.
Yeah.
The drive alone isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's not, maybe back then it was, but I'm like, whoa, I'm working myself to death if I want to like really make it in this industry.
Yeah.
And so I was like, nah, man, so I start to transition online. And then the first thing I did was developing websites for WordPress websites for people. And I just,
were you well versed in WordPress before that? Okay.
To be a personal trainer, I had to develop my own websites, and I started with Wix, and then I moved to WordPress. And
how did you learn WordPress?
Tyler.com. There's 29 free video lessons. They're still there today.
So you take a free video lesson.
All there. And you create a website right alongside him. And I did. And it was like decent. And then I got really, really good at it without any guidance. And I had an eye for design. I was like, so I started doing that for local clients around here.
Wow.
Also,
how would you find your clients?
Well, look, I didn't have the best strategy. It was hope, something would land in my lap and I'd be like, all right, that's $3,000-$4,000 for the month. Like that's good. Maybe I'd have 2 in a month and that'd be awesome.
But people had to hear about you. Was it just like on campus, word of mouth, or was it local, tell a local business owner? Or?
I mean, one time it was just like me walking into a business and striking up a conversation. Totally not
okay. Yeah.
Another time it was.
So it was on your mind of a way that you
campus,
could monetize your knowledge, but it wasn't I'm figuring out how to grow and scale this business.
Yeah, no, I had no idea how to do that.
Okay.
Hope was my strategy. It's not a good strategy. But that was good. I was still making $3,000-$4,000 a pop when something did find its way into my lap. And so that was cool. And I was really, because I was still training at the time. And then I was comparing that, like, wow, $3,000 website, maybe 10 hours of work. Cause I was good at it.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was like 5 hours of work and I was, it was really good in a complex website.
And you control when you want to work on it.
Sorry, what?
And you can control when you want to work on it.
Yeah, that too. And I'm like comparing that $3,000 for 5 to 10 hours versus $3,000 working like 50, 60 hours. I was like, damn, I got to stop with the personal training thing. And that really put the nail on the coffin.
Fascinating.
But I was still doing it.
Yeah.
And then I realized I was just a glorified freelancer with developing websites.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, in 2019, that's when my podcast started to take off a little bit more.
But stop that though. Where did the podcast come into this?
Oh, I started that 2018, beginning of 2018.
Why?
I don't know. Just did it. Yeah,
Like
just
you
kind of
were you
happened.
listening to a lot of podcasts at that point?
Yeah. And it started one just for no reason and had it running in the background. It wasn't really anything special. Didn't
Who'd
really have a
you
ton of
listen to at
listeners.
that point?
Who did I listen to?
Yeah, like who were you listening to on a regular basis?
Yeah, Lewis Howes and Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
You know,
Same.
the
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
you
Same.
listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which,
Okay.
by the way,
See,
I saw I know that because you wrote a very kind review that I only saw like 2 days ago on my podcast. I caught it.
okay. So, and by the way, like I think about, so I, I, I just developed a love of podcasts when I started long distance running. Around the same 2018 is when I started running. And you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. As I'm the type where I'm like, oh, I like to run, signing up for a marathon. So it was one of those things where like I went from like running 2 miles to being like, I'm signing up for a marathon a day later, and now I'm training for a marathon. And podcasts joined me, were along with me on that journey.
Yeah, they
And
joined me. I like that.
it was amazing. So it was like Rich Roll, Lewis Howes, Tim Ferriss. And when I think about my roster now of like when I go out for a run, now I'm hooked on it. So I'm constantly training for marathons. And I think about my roster is again, Tim Ferriss, Lewis Howes, Rich Roll, and it's now Jordan Paris. Like I love your interviews, man. They are
Thank
really
you.
good. Really good. I learned from each and every
that.
one of them. And I like the diversity of guests that you have. I just listened to, this is embarrassing, the Chris McGinnis.
Patrick
Yeah,
McGinnis.
sorry. Patrick, there you go. I totally forgot.
Guy who
Funny thing about it is I actually went to his book launch for the 10%
10%
Entrepreneur. And that actually was an influential book in me starting my business. And it was one of those eye-opening things of, wait, you can work on it 10% of the time while you're still working full time. That's a different story. But nonetheless, it is solidly in my my playlist now. So I
appreciate that, man. I
pointing
hope
out the
that
work.
after our conversation today that continues.
Oh, for sure. No doubt. Oh, 100%. No doubt. No doubt. It is solidly there now. But so you started this just for, okay, I like podcasts. I'm just starting a podcast casually on the side. Were you doing it once a week? Like, what was your intention with the podcast?
No,
Because you're an intentional guy.
Yeah, I didn't have an intention.
You're like a strategic dude, though. You were just thinking,
No,
like,
I
I'm
didn't
just doing
have
this.
it.
Really? Okay.
I've become more strategic with time. At that point, I just didn't know what I was doing with that. I was just starting it because I had nothing to lose, and because I thought I should, and I almost quit around 30 episodes because I was doing it because I thought I should, and other people were doing it.
Who were your first guests?
I mean, Steve was my first guest in episode like 8.
Okay.
But it was mostly solo episodes for like the first 30 or first 20. And then I started having guests more.
Was it called Growth Mindset University from the start? Why? Yep. So what got your interest in the growth mindset?
Well, look, it's less about, it's about growth mindset. You can, anything can be learned with effort. That's essentially, that's how Carol Dweck talks about growth mindset, the person who coined the term. And yes, anything can be, I certainly approach my life that way. Learning is a way of life for me, and I can learn anything with effort. Like, look, Ryan, I used to be very, very, very poor at sales. I used to be very poor in the world of communication, and I didn't know how to talk to people. Even when I got on campus and I had these friends, I was still my communication skills were really trying very hard to catch up with my newfound popularity, so to say. Look, I wanted to be popular. I was like, this is really cool. I'm popular for the first time in my life. Sound superficial term, but I know.
No, for sure.
But my communication skills were really trying to catch up, and I just found myself like walking away from interactions, like shaking my head way too often. It happens to everyone now. But it happens way less often for me now because I put in the work to learn human behavior and communication. And I feel that over the years, I've gotten exponentially more skilled with communication and just analyzing human behavior. It's not something that I talk about a lot, but something that I can really explain. But just after studying from the ellipsis manual, analysis and engineering of human behavior. There's this whole periodic table of elements here.
That is
called
amazing.
Called the behavioral table of elements. And
that's amazing.
Here is from head to toe, what every gesture, every nonverbal thing that a human could possibly do, and what it all means, and levels of deception, and all these different indicators here. And I feel like after reading books like that and studying the behavioral table of elements from my friend Chase Hughes, and reading the laws of human nature and the 48 laws of power, and influence by Dr. Cialdini, and persuasion, I feel that I've really come into my own in the world of analyzing, at the very least.
Well, look, I mean, I can tell you, just our first conversation was a couple of weeks ago, and you're an amazing communicator. You're an amazing communicator on your podcast. No, and it's interesting though, again, just going back to the take the next step, the fact that it was an intentional process to get to where you are right now as it relates to communicating. But, so the interesting, how did you have that awareness? Because you're popular. So you're getting that feedback that people like you, people know you, but like somehow innately, that you're not an effective communicator. But how do you square that?
I mean, because I would be at a party and someone would be like, "Yo, are you Jordan? Are you Jordan Paris?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, what's up, man?"
Yeah.
And I would just totally they'd be like, "Oh, I saw you on the court the other day." Or something like, something like that, something, man. And I would just fumble. I'd be like awkward about it.
Okay. But it's interesting though, because
where I knew.
I know a lot of people though who again are, for whatever lack of a better term, are popular and who have friends and who are great people, but who are terrible communicators. But they're really good people, which is why people like them. But there's almost a shield with that, because it's really hard because I feel the same way about myself. Like, it's really hard to admit when you have this sort of deficiency, especially when you're getting that feedback of people know who you are and people like you. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering where that came from, where you're like, again, having that self-awareness, but also that ego suppression of saying, all right, people know me, people like me, I'm popular, but I also know that this is something I really need to work on.
Yeah, well, it was a problem that was carried over from high school too. Like,
but people didn't. But you said you didn't necessarily have connection, or you weren't popular in high school. And now you were.
Yeah, exactly. That was the problem. Part of it was just me not being bold and not knowing, just thinking too much about what to say, and part of the problem.
Right.
The silence was a symptom of the problem.
I see. So you were working on it from high school into college, but in college,
I wasn't working on it in high school. I started.
Okay. I see. And then you just had that awareness that, like, I need to continue to get better at this.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. That makes sense. Okay.
And then with, I mean, because we're talking about growth mindset university here and growth mindset, then with sales, I mean, look, as recently as 2020, I mean, it is 2020, and just several months ago, I was like, I can't do sales. I can't do it. I don't know how to prospect. I don't know how to prospect 4 months ago. Now I'm booking too many meetings. You and I had a meeting.
Totally.
I'm booking too many meetings. I'm closed. Too many people want to work with me.
Yeah.
I'm having these great problems. So I've had to stop reaching out to people because my business needs to catch up. I got to be able to make sure that we're still doing the best possible work. But it came from just putting in the work and learning all about, seeking out so many resources, all about prospecting and sales, and balancing the work of Cialdini and sales leaders like Jeb Blunt with a less salesy approach that Bob Berg talks about with go-givers sell more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's important to take from to counterbalance. If you read Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, you have to read Go-Givers Sell More. You just have to counterbalance the two.
It's a really interesting point you're making. I mean,
you're going to end up being a really slimy salesman if you just read all the this is how you close people, and
100%.
this is the psycho,
100. It's so spot on.
I try not to be like that.
No, again, from the other side of the table, again, you did all the right things that I would think someone who's selling should be doing, right? And at least what it works for me. And by the way, I mean, sales, if you own a business or if you want to be a business owner, you have to get comfortable with sales. You just have to. Like there's no way around it. But to your point though, you do have to get a diversity of sales perspectives because everyone has a very different approach on it. And I'm not going to say one is right or one is wrong. I can tell you from someone who's selling and someone who gets sold to, like, I know what works for me.
Yes, certainly.
And I know how I have to be. And like, I can tell you what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And like, I'm really bad. If there's something you don't want to do, I'm really bad at convincing you to do something you don't want to do.
Right. Well, you should, I mean,
some people are really good at it.
Type of friction. There shouldn't be like convincing someone to do something they don't want to do. I totally agree. The slimy salesman. That's the essence of the slimy salesman.
But some people are really good at it.
Like a mutually, it's going to be a mutual decision. Like you are bridging the gap between, I mean, you have to really like stop doing a whole product feature dump and on the other person, vomiting all the products and features out onto them and talk like seriously, not talk about them in like oh, if you talk about them, that's going to get you to like, that's going to make them buy from you. They love talking about themselves. No, talk about them to like, and ask them questions to really, really understand their problems at the core, at their core. And see if you can't, if, maybe your product or service bridges the gap between that problem and your solution. Maybe there's a bridge to be made there. And maybe there's not. I don't make offers to everyone. Totally. I get on a call and sometimes I know, like, I'm like, I literally say, honestly, I don't know how a podcast can fit for you. I don't really know. I don't think this can work.
Yeah, I do that all the time. And it's one of those where like, I want, to your point, I think you said it beautifully. Like I want people to explain their pain, explain their unrest. And if I can solve it for them, well, then the sale makes itself. And it's one of those where like, I can solve your problem. And I know that I can solve your problem. And I know that it's going to be a good relationship. And guess what? This good relationship, they're going to refer me to their friends and family. And that happens all the time. Yep. If I'm talking to you and for whatever reason, you set up a meeting for, I don't know, for a random reason, and you actually don't need some, I tell people all the time, like, I don't think you need me. And by the way, like those people have referred me to people.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those where like, I don't like, I'm a big energy person. And it's like, if someone's a bad fit, it's just going to suck so much energy. And even if you might make a sale, it's just not going to be worth it in the long run because it's going to suck too much energy, emotional energy on both sides. And I
know exactly what you mean.
Right. Totally.
I just wanted to wrap up your last question, which is like, why growth mindset? I mean, learning for me, yes, it's a way of life. And I'm constantly learning from my guests. It wasn't like this in the beginning. I was just having guests on just to have guests, just because other people had guests, and that's what I thought I should do. Now it's just, I only reach out to people whose books I read, whose products and services I use, who I'm just abundantly curious about learning more from, people who are world-class at the thing that they do. And I'm constantly learning from it. I've picked up so many things over the years that have just been implemented from my conversations with people on Growth Mindset University. So that's where I feel like I've really adopted that, before even I started the podcast, that learning is a way of life for me. And I can do anything. I literally say that all the time, I can do anything. And I've carried that over with the podcast. And yeah, that's why Growth Mindset. That's why Growth Mindset University. Sorry to jump in there.
No. It's good because we went on a little tangent there. So I'm glad you put a bow on that. Because I know I'm fascinated by again, the concept and how you call it Growth Mindset University. And obviously I know that's a very intentional name. But it's one of those where, I mean, from my own personal experience, like I can tell you just from me, but everyone that I've interviewed so far on this podcast and just people I know in general, the people that I think are genuinely the happiest are those that are on some sort of personal growth journey. And again, I'm in the money business, and I tell people all the time, you want to live $1 billion life, take a personal growth journey. That's going to provide so much more value and abundance than any material item you can buy. And that's why that truth bomb that we talked about at the beginning really landed with me, because it's like, if you have a choice between a $250 Gucci belt or a $250 seminar all day long.
Yeah.
There's no
I don't think I'll ever have a Gucci belt. I don't even, that doesn't even appeal to me, man.
Totally.
I like the belt I'm wearing right now.
And I tell people, like, this first episode that I just had, with Brendan Russo, it's like, he's 300 pounds. He was 300 pounds, and now he's a 5-time marathoner, running sub 4-hour marathons. You look at him, and it just took a pair of shoes and going outside and deciding to go on this journey of losing weight that's provided him a value that's beyond anything that money can buy. So I am just a huge advocate of, if you want to live an abundant life, if you want to live a wealthy life, embrace some sort of personal growth.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Huge.
It's just empowering to know that you can learn just about anything, and that there's a book out there on everything, and people have been in your shoes before. They've had your problems, and people can help you solve them. I mean, there's like I said, there's a book out there for everything.
Yeah.
And it's empowering to know that you can do just about anything as well. Yeah. It's empowering to know that, even in a financial sense, like, I can give myself a raise whenever I want. I just got to go reach out to 10 prospects every day next week. I love that. And like 2-3 weeks from now, I'll have like a $24,000 a year raise. Like,
I love that.
Like, it's, I give myself a raise anytime I damn want. Like, I know anything's, I can do it. It's, to your point, it's an empowering way to live.
I love it. Guys, there's so much to talk about here. I know we're running a little long on time. Are you good on time?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Because a couple other things I want to talk about here, but it's funny, man. I just want to tell you a really quick story, because it's just something that Lauren, my wife, and I were talking about recently. Just the fact that you talked about giving yourself a raise anytime, and the fact that you have this control and you have this freedom. Yes. I think it's going to be as important as ever going forward for people to have their own personal brands, and for people to really start taking control of their own destiny. And I mean, I think these times that we're living in right now, and with what happened with COVID-19, and I think there are a lot more job losses to come. And I think you're going to start to see higher income people losing jobs. I think we're at the very start of this, unfortunately. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. But it's amazing. So there's this one, we were chatting about this the other day. There's this one company where it was like consistently private company, one founder owner, probably, call it 30, 40 employees, consistently ranked as one of the top places to work, like consistently. And I've known people who've worked there, and it's a great culture. And I've been to the offices before, and it's amazing. It's like all young people. They have beers in the fridge. It's like a fun crowd. There's music playing. Like, it's like a good vibe. Like, you walk in there and you're like, you can see that this is an awesome place to be. And we might be a little bit underpaid, but it's such a great place. And we've got this mission. We got this purpose. When the lockdown started, the quarantine started, within 1 week, 90% of the employees were let go.
Wow.
Within a week. And look, the owner, look, he's got kids in private school. He has overhead. He has a lifestyle that, and I get it. That's his choice. He can do that. But I'm not trying to paint a bad picture of this guy. Like, he did what he had to do. But I'm making the point here that if you don't take control of yourself and your future and your destiny, like, you can be in the best place ever. You can be in one of the best cultures you can imagine. But when things get tough, if there's one owner, that person's going to think of themselves and their family first. And that's not wrong. That's just reality.
I think that, Ryan, there's this illusion of security
Totally.
in taking a job in the corporate world.
No doubt.
People say there's more security and it's less risky to take a normal corporate job with a big company. That's the riskiest thing in the world you could do. Any day, you could, regardless of pandemic, any day you could be fired. Like someone's above you controlling your destiny.
Totally.
Someone could not like you. I think it's way more empowering to, and you have much more control when you've got your own business.
100%.
People say that's risky. I mean, you control it all. I really control how much income I have.
Yeah.
I don't have a business that runs off of the strategy of hope anymore.
Yeah.
I reach out to people.
Yeah.
I prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I control the money that comes in. I can never get fired. Like, it's the safest thing you could do.
I could not agree with you more. I'll just tell you one quick story here. And this is one thing that, I mean, was a huge turning point for me in the financial crisis. I was 27 years old when the financial crisis hit, working in Wall Street, working kind of a classic, Wall Street firm. Mm-hmm. And when the financial crisis hit, again, 27 years old, I was actually promoted. I was promoted into a managerial role at a young age, in all of the chaos. And on the one hand, you can say, man, I'm awesome. Like, I'm really, really good and well-respected in my job. But then when I actually looked and observed what was happening around me, there were people who were leading my training program, people who were at the firm for 25 years, who were, lifers. They led the firm. They might have had a tattoo of the firm on them. It was like, this is the best place. We've been here for 25 years. Like, you are so lucky you were here. And it was amazing when I moved into that role and I realized, oh, they were let go. So they're taking people who are 48 years old, 49, who have been at the firm their entire career, and they're replacing them with me, who's a third of the price. And I'm not as good as they were. I was young, but I was a lot cheaper for that role. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, like no one's looking out for you. And again, these people gave their life to it and they're not looking out. Yeah. But I came up with this. I came up with this framework of, if you want to be successful, and you can find a success in a lot of different ways, you need to be in one of three areas. And these aren't, you can be in multiple ones, but you need to be at least one of these three. You either need to own something, you need to be the owner. You either need to know something that most people don't know and have that expertise, or you need to be in sales.
Yeah.
Or a combination of the three.
Yeah.
And if you're in one of those, you have a lot of protection. Like for example, owning something, you're a business owner, to your point, you can give yourself a raise anytime. You just have to put some hustle into it. Mm-hmm. If brain surgeons get paid a lot of money and they have pretty high job safety, because not a lot of people can operate on a brain. Right. So there's the scarcity there. So you have to know something that most people don't know. And then the third thing is sales. I know people who sell random things and make $500,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And they don't own the business, but they own their process and they own their sales, and they've been protected through a lot of these ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And then it's not mutually exclusive. Like, if you're a business owner, a lot of times you have to have all three. So that's just one of those things where when I talk to a young person, I'm like, who's in college and investing in themselves, it's, if you're going to invest in yourself, you've got to be in one of these three areas. Own something, know something that other people don't know, that's in demand, and then sell.
And if you don't, then you're just an
input.
Yeah, right. It's expendable.
100%. Totally. Yeah. Totally. So I really want to go back to this podcast though, because you're just starting it for fun, but now you have this huge podcast. So, and I also want to tie it into your interview with Charlie Rocket. With 62, because I was running when I was listening to that, and that blew my mind. So talk about, you're doing this podcast, you're talking about, like, you're thinking about quitting this podcast at some point. So bring us back to that point.
Yeah, I was not enjoying it in September of 2018. I was just doing it, like I said earlier, because I thought I should. And it just wasn't that fun. Wasn't seeing great results. That didn't really bother me a ton, but just wasn't having fun. And I don't know. I got really depressed in September of 2018 for like no reason. Like there's nothing I could look at and be like, it was this thing that really weird. So I was just like, I don't want to do this. But I never quit, and I pressed on, and I was up from there.
But what was that turning point?
Turning point in what sense?
Well,
quitting or
yeah, wait, because at some point you say, okay, I'm not having fun. I'm not seeing results. The results aren't bothering me. I'm not having fun. But at some point, obviously, you said, well, wait a second. I'm going to keep doing this. And there had to be some sort of feedback.
Well, I just didn't quit. It wasn't like, it was less a decision to keep going than it was to just not quit. I just decided to I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. Like I didn't really want to go on, but I didn't, I don't know. It's hard to explain.
So how does the 60-second episode?
Yeah. I mean, around 60 to 70 is when I really started to gain a little bit more momentum. The quality went way up. I started using a platform called Squadcast, which captures excellent audio. I started using LinkedIn a little bit before then, but right before then, and then I was starting to gain more momentum on LinkedIn, and thus the podcast.
So it started to grow. You started to get that positive feedback.
And I was really starting to interview guests that I actually was naturally curious about. I wasn't like pretending to be curious anymore. I was not feigning curiosity. I think it's a weird phenomenon in podcasts nowadays, where when podcasts just have guests just to have guests because they think they should, you can hear it in the tone of voice. It's like this fake curiosity. I think it's really kind of funny. So I was starting to get away from that, because I was taking more chances. And
really, so who was that first guest?
I mean, the first. I mean,
when you made that shift.
Yeah.
Where
there were a couple of people in that time frame. There was Rachel Starr, who at one point was the biggest porn star in the world. Still pretty big. There was her. There was Chase Hughes of the Ellipsis Manual, the book I talked about earlier with the behavioral table of elements. That was like 62. I think it was 62. That episode was number 2. I swear to God, it was number 62. And that was probably that was really my first one that I was unbelievably excited about. Unbelievably.
Yeah. Did you reach out to him cold?
Yeah. Connected with him on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Because I saw something that he posted, and then he messaged me.
Really?
Yeah.
To be on your podcast?
Ask me to be on the podcast, but just to talk on the phone, which I'm surprised someone, his time's worth a lot, and and I don't know, I'm just really, he's just a nice guy, man.
Interesting.
He's a really nice guy. We had a good conversation. I invited him on the podcast. And
so you'd already read his book at that point. You were a fan. You connected on LinkedIn, and he just randomly reaches out to you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So it was cool. Who else? Oh, David Meltzer was somebody that I really looked up to at the time.
And was that just a cold outreach?
Yeah. And then, that was probably, and then just from there it was up. And then by episode 60, I was a nobody, and I was not excited about the podcast. And by episode 99, I had Mark Manson on for the first time.
Wow. That's a big land, man.
Yeah.
And how
it was it was huge, man. I remember sending out the email. I was actually in LA with Steve. I had just gotten to LA. And he was I was taking over the studio because he was going to Japan or something. And he was going to Arizona that time. Doesn't matter. But I sent the email out to him. I remember being with Steve when I got the email back, and I was just really excited. I was like, wow, because I've sent it at night, and then in the morning is when I like woke up and saw the email. And it was it was really cool.
That's awesome.
He had a new book coming out. He sent me the advanced copy of the book. So I got, my favorite author. I got the book like way before it came out.
Amazing.
And then he came on again recently. He was, I don't know if you heard one or both of them or none yet.
I haven't heard. I haven't heard them yet.
Yeah, he came on again around maybe 182 or something.
Okay.
And then afterwards, he's like, maybe I'll come on again for my next because he's writing a book with Will Smith now.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, yeah, man, yeah, sure.
That's amazing. I mean, he's on big podcasts.
Yeah.
So that's a big land. And I'm a huge fan of his. So I should listen to I listened to him on Rich Roll and a couple other ones. He seems like a really good.
I didn't know he was on Rich Roll.
He was on Rich Roll, yeah, and he was on Lewis House. He seems like a really
that was a good interview. I remember that one. That was 2017.
Yeah, and by the way, so for the listeners out there, when we reference 62, let's not explain it here. Go listen to the Charlie Rocket Jordan interview. It's really good, and the 62, and Charlie does a really good job explaining it. Like that really blew my mind.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. You probably know Charlie you probably heard him on Rich Roll a few years ago. I just realized.
Yeah, totally. That's how I
heard
know.
That was a really good interview.
Great interview. Yeah. And then I started following him, and, the whole thing about, being a Nike sponsored athlete. Yeah. So I started following his journey, and he's super inspiring.
Dude, that guy just gets what he wants.
Amazing. It's amazing. But he was also a guy
hanging out with he was just on Logan Paul's. He was just on Impulsive a couple of days ago.
Yeah, no, he's but he's a guy too, where at an early age, he had an incredible awareness of how to earn significance. And I'll leave it there. He's a guy I would love to have on because I really admire his work. But yeah,
totally have him on.
Yeah. I would love to make that happen. But so now here you are today. I mean, so are people reaching out to you, or are you still reaching out to these big names to be on your podcast?
There's exceptions, like you mentioned Ryan Serhant. He actually DM'd me.
Really? No way.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But after, in August of 2019, when I first reached out to him, after I got ignored, I got awesome. DM'd on LinkedIn in probably February or something.
It's a really good interview.
Thank you. It's funny. It's one of those ones, and you'll find that this happens, Ryan, that you're in the interview and you think it really isn't going well, and afterwards you're like, you're kicking yourself, but then you listen to it back and a month later, and you're like, oh wait, what am I thinking?
Yeah, totally.
It's weird how you can just get in your head from one little thing that you perceive as that was weird or went wrong, and it just stays in it distorts your perception the rest of the interview and afterwards. It's weird how that happens. That was one of those interviews for me where I was like, damn, I blew it. But people, you said it. I've heard it before. Someone else said that on LinkedIn that it was their favorite episode in 200 plus. I was like, wow, I honestly didn't know people enjoyed that. I knew it wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I released it, but I was like, it's not the best interview I've ever done.
I listened to probably 20 of your episodes, and that one sticks out as definitely one towards the top.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Funny how that works, man.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it? I know. Totally. It is.
But to your question, yeah, I mean, with that exception of him reaching out to me, usually it's me reaching out to people because I have a very specific person I want to interview.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific type of person. I don't have a type of person I want to interview. I have specific real people I want to interview, and the odds that they reach out to me are not very high. Mm-hmm. So I really have to do the legwork. Now I get these introductions. People, I get you want to interview this person, friends that have this person on their podcast, want to interview him. He's made $34 billion, $1 trillion, and he's done this, and he invented sliced bread. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm sure it'd be good, good podcast. but I don't really know who this person is, and I don't really like.
Yeah.
This person's just not already in my world. I want to interview people that I'm already naturally curious about. I get that you can be curious about everyone. I get that you can learn from something from everyone, but I only put out 52 shows a year.
Yeah.
There's like a limited number of slots here.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to make it as easy for me as possible. I don't want to have to go do a ton of homework to like just familiarize with myself with who is this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have my own agenda. I have my own people I want to interview that I really don't have to do a ton of homework for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I already know them.
And it seems like, again, just listening to your podcast, it seems like there's that natural flow because there is that curiosity, and you can tell that you're a fan of the people that are on your show. That's very clear.
That shines through.
Oh, 100%, no doubt. Man, this has been so helpful from my perspective. Someone who's launching this podcast, and just again, that piece of information alone, I think, is something that is really useful for people who want to start a podcast, because I think you hit something that again really landed with me personally with respect to when podcast hosts have a guest on that you're just going through the motions and checking the boxes. Sure. You can feel it. And it's one of those, like, I feel like people, for me, I think people are going to complain that these podcasts are a little long, but in part because I'm like fascinated by the stories that people have to share and the insights. So sometimes I just don't know where to stop it.
Fascinated by someone like me, who's really like, look, I don't know how you're fascinated by me. Like I'm nothing special, man. Like I would never have me on my podcast.
Oh, are you kidding me? Oh my God. I totally disagree. I mean, what I'm fascinated about with you is, God, I feel like you and I could do like a Rogan, like 6-hour long podcast, because like there's so many things I want to talk about with you. But like, it's one of those where, what I'm fascinated about though, is that, and that's why I wanted to talk about your college experience, is that you were someone in college that kind of had this vision and design that, I compare it to a lot of my friends, or a lot of people I know, or a lot of kids that I see in college, or myself when I was in college. And like, I was going through the motions, man. I was falling in line, and I look back at it and I'm like, gosh, I wasted so much time.
Yeah, dude. What is that?
Going through the motions.
It's like, I mean, from an early age, we're taught to like get in line, stay in line,
totally.
Get with the program. And like, I remember my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Meltzer, just a miserable human being, who I don't know how she was so miserable, because she was pretty young too. I just don't get it. I'm probably almost her age, but dude, just miserable. And her 2 lines.
By the way, she might be a big fan of this podcast. Just saying.
Yeah. her famous lines were, one, she'd always be like, "Get with the program."
Totally.
And the other was like, she used to teach a kindergarten. She'd be like, "My kindergartners line up better than you guys." Everything was about obedience and getting in line, staying in line, getting with the program.
Totally.
And that's not just like one teacher. I mean, from an early age, it's like, I mean, listen to Seth Godin's Stop Stealing Dreams TED Talk. And he kind of outlines how obedience is really drilled into from kindergarten, from the very beginning. And I think that people just get caught up in going with the flow. They just get caught up with going with other people's flow and just doing things because they think they should. And social proof. I mean, to a degree, we all rely on social proof to determine the best possible course, the best path to go down. I mean, we all it's just human nature. We rely on social proof a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The actions of others to determine the best possible behavior,
totally.
But for ourselves. But I think people rely on it too much. I used to say dead fish go with the flow.
Yeah.
And I started questioning it. I was like,
But that's what I'm fascinated
I don't know
how you knew how to, because like,
well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, I kind of go with the flow. But then after like a year or two of thinking about it, I was like, wait, I don't go with the flow. I go with my flow.
Yeah, totally.
I do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I go with that flow. Like, I don't have a set rigid structure. I mean, I get up and I read and I meditate. The rest of it is like, figure it out from there. I want to work, I work. I don't want to work, I don't work. I close the computer. I literally do what I want to do all the time. And I go with my flow. I don't go with the flow of society and parents and teachers. I've never subscribed to this is how I ended up in college. Cause at one point I did subscribe to it. It was the, get good grades so you can get into a good college, get more good grades so that you can get a good job and work in that job for 40 years and then retire and then die 3 years later. Save everything, literally save everything, all of life's enjoyments for retirement when you're too old to enjoy it. And then yes, die 3 years later.
Yeah.
But I started to really question that in college. I actually tweeted something the other day, question everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through like Gretchen Rubin's 4 tendencies,
yeah,
like what type of person are you?
Mm-hmm.
I took the quiz. I am the questioner. Big surprise. I question everything.
Yeah.
Like I question authority I have this inherent disdain for authority.
Yeah. Well, so was that always the case? I mean, was that the case from a young age?
And that's tough to say because I don't know. I think it is definitely something I developed more in my teenage years as my ego really developed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. That's part of the reason why I'm so fascinated by your story, because again, I think about myself and I think about when I was in college, I wanted to be an investment banker. Why? I have no idea.
Right.
I didn't know what an investment banker did. Like even when I was interviewing for investment, I had no clue I just knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Why? Because I call it the high achiever trap. It's like you're always looking for what does the high achiever do? Most people don't go to college saying, I want to be a corporate attorney at Skadden, right?
Well,
it's easy to fall into.
People do say that, but they're like,
some do.
But then if you ask, a majority of people ask why.
Yeah.
That's where the fun starts.
100%. No doubt.
No one knows why.
Totally. Man, it's
like, is that what's going to make you think that'll make you happy? Like what? Seriously, why are you doing it?
I tell you, man,
I make so many people like I talk to that just, I mean, dude, you left Goldman Sachs in your mid 30s.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and it was
a lot of people that realize in their mid 30s, mid 40s that are like, wait a minute, why did I do all this?
Dude, it took me to 35 years old to realize, wait a second, stop. Like, what train am I on? And like, why am I on this? And do I want to go where this is going?
Seriously.
But it took me to 35 and like kind of going through like a little personal disaster to really get to the bottom and just say like, this isn't the life that I want to live. And I was living in a life that was designed for me, not by me.
Right.
And again, that's why kind of going back to, my interest in you. And again, seeing that truth bomb that you put out and saying like, who is this cat? And then seeing that, you're this college kid and then, following your journey, it's like, how? I'm fascinated by it. So, it makes sense.
I had a lot of luck.
Yeah. I mean,
a lot of good influences.
Something landed at the right place, right time. Totally. And do you think your high school, I mean, it was one of those things where like, how should I say this? I was in a popular crowd in high school, but I wasn't the most popular guy. Like I was popular by attachment. Let's put it that way. And like, it was important to me. Right. But a lot of what you said, like I had my communication skills needed a lot of work. I was super awkward. I was super introverted. I had major anxiety, but I was going through the motions because it was really important to me. And I think it was important to my parents too, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of what high achievers do is really to please their parents and I love my parents, by the way, but I think a lot of it was like the parents' ego involved with it and knowing, how, I understood that I was a proxy for my parents' self-worth. Yeah. And it's something that I held on for a long time. That's
pretty common. Yeah.
Totally. 100%. And my parents are super proud of me and they're super supportive of what I do now. But at the time I just felt an enormous pressure, but it was one of those where it's almost like, I think because I didn't have any of those moments of being like, I moved around a lot as a kid. So I was feeling a longing for acceptance, but I kind of had acceptance, but like not really, but sort of. There was never the pain of like, I feel like sometimes having that experience in high school is actually a huge advantage because it gives you, like for you, you went into college with a completely different approach than I went.
Oh yeah, I've thought before, if I was popular in high school, I would have a corporate job right now.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
To be honest, I would.
Totally, 100%,
Which would
100%.
suck.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and it would suck. I mean, I can tell you that. I look back at those days. I'm glad I did it. And like, by the way, too, like, and for people listening, this is not to say like, I look at you with, I'm amazed by it, but I'm not necessarily envious of it.
I was just gonna
because
say, yeah.
like, you kind of have to come to your realization at the time that you come to it. I mean, you could be 45 and that's totally fine. You have still a ton of time left to live, and you have all of this experience. So I look at my experience.
Well, look, it worked out for you.
100%.
And you built up you worked at a great company, built up a great cash base.
Exactly.
To be able to launch yourself.
That's right.
Into have a much smoother transition
100%.
out of the corporate.
So let's round this out, man. So a couple things. So it's actually a good segue into one thing I want to talk about. Again, to kind of round this out. Can you talk about your 3 criteria?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes with what we're talking about, of not having a life designed for you, and instead designing your life. And I've designed my life around the criteria of helping a lot of people, having a lot of fun, and making a lot of money. And I really do believe that helping
a lot of people, having fun, and making money.
Yeah.
Love it.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot of all 3.
Yeah.
I really believe that a happy founder has to have an alignment of all 3 of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Happy founder. I mean, you can be a founder and not have those 3 things, but now with my business, and it's been a progression over the years, didn't have all those 3 boxes checked at one point, but now with my business, Trend Up Media, we're a done for you podcast production company. I absolutely have an alignment of all 3 of those things, and it makes for a really amazing life.
Mm-hmm.
Like
totally.
it's a good place to be up here in my head.
I love it, man. So Trend Up Media, who's that for?
For people who want to fuel their business with a podcast. That's really what we specialize in, because there's a consulting arm to it as well. It's not just like, here's your podcast done now, blah, blah, here, take it. No, like it's a very intimate. So our clients get on the phone with me one-on-one every single month for 20, 30 minutes. And we are just talking strategy, bang, 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 getting a lot done. And I'm really teaching people and helping them implement on having the podcast be a really great tool to build trust and rapport with people over a long period of time, which it is naturally, but also establishing a real business purpose behind the podcast, not just having a podcast just because, it's fun, which it is. But at some point, if it's only fun, and I probably said this to you, if it's only fun and there's no business purpose behind it, it's just not going to take priority at a certain point. It's going to fall by the wayside. So
such a good point.
It's for people and companies really who want to use a podcast as a tool to fuel their boost their business. And
I love it.
And it's really not, honestly, dude. Like I don't work with everyone. People that I'm really have an eye for people who are relatively established. Perhaps they're in the coaching consulting business, or heck, a new client of ours, unstack.com. They're it's like like Wix.
Mm-hmm.
Unstack is like a way better version of Wix that does a lot more and integrates like all sorts of different tools and landing pages and just literally all sorts of every marketing tool in like one place. So a company like that, it's just.
I love it. I think, you're already starting to see this, but like podcasts are going to be basically like a website for a company. I mean, you're going to need both. Every company at some point
you're going to need both. Wow. Yeah.
You're going to have to. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're going to have to engage with your customers in a number of different ways. And again, I think websites
blog posts aren't cutting it anymore, man.
No doubt. I totally agree with it. And people want to. I know financial advisors that are friends of mine who own their own practices and have podcasts, and they get clients from it.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
Trust.
my podcast is a great business generator.
Yeah.
So, I mean, without the podcast, I don't have a business, and that's partly because my business relies on my credibility in the podcast world. But look, it's funny. Even Goldman Sachs has I don't know if it's a podcast. But
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Talks at Goldman Sachs.
Oh,
they have
100%. Yeah.
Isn't that
no
cool?
doubt. You have to.
I love that they're smart enough to know that.
And look, man, I'm gonna plug this for a second. For people who are listening, because there are people that listen to this that talk about, oh man, I want to start a podcast, and I tell them all the time, go to Jordan Paris. You have a course; it's free. You can learn everything. I mean, I basically started. I mean, you saw it. I mean, I was trying to download something, and you ended up sending it to me.
Oh.
I mean, people ask me like, how did I start this podcast? It's like Jordan Paris, like. I got your awesome, content. Man. No, I'm dead serious, man. And so for someone listening who's like thinking they want to dip their toe in the water, go to Jordan Paris. He's got amazing free content. I mean, you basically did a course. You could easily sell that course for like, I probably would have paid $200 for it, to be honest.
Oh, I know, man. I don't know. Cause most people who, I mean, it's generated business in other ways. So, that's fine that it's free. And would that business have been generated if it was a paid course? I don't know. I mean, maybe there's pros and cons to it. Because then if someone pays $200 for the course, then that's quite the qualifier. If they're willing to spend $200 on that course, I think that they're willing to spend $1,000 a month on a done-for-you service.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it'd be a good qualifier. But now it's like, the course has been out for over a year. It's been out for 13 months. Just about everyone unless I have some big surge in new listeners of my podcast, I've gotten just about everyone who is a podcaster to sign up for that course who listens to my podcast.
Yeah.
And so the rate of signups has slowed. Even though, you plug it it's just because I've gotten so many people to sign up for it.
Yeah.
So it's like a good thing.
Yeah.
There is going to be a surge of new listeners soon. I actually know that for a fact. Got some things in the works right now. October is going to be a gigantic month for me, but
can you say why?
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay.
And so, I mean, maybe I do a different, I get that course should totally be paid, but maybe I do a different course. But then again, just about everything I could possibly say about podcasting is really in there. 90% of what I could say.
There's also amazing free downloads too. So
yeah, it's trendup.media/free is where it's all at instead of .com.media.
Trendup.media.free.
Trendup.media/free.
Got it. I'll put that in the show notes. And so someone's digging on this, they want to engage with you more besides the website. How else can they get in touch with you or engage with you?
It's a good question. Well,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. I mean, you can't really send me a connection request unless you have my email, so that's a problem. I mean, LinkedIn and Instagram are really where I'm most responsive.
LinkedIn, Instagram, it is TrendUp. What else? Anything else? Or?
Yeah, I'm not going to give away my email.
No, don't do it. Yeah.
But if you download a tool called hunter.io, it finds email addresses. If you just go to grantcardone.com and you can look up email address and find all the email addresses on that. So that's how I found Grant. That's how I reached out to him and replied.
That's awesome.
2 minutes later.
That's amazing.
You could literally go to my website. If you download hunter.io, Chrome extension for free, by the way, you can go to my website and do that. So if you find my email that way and you're really resourceful, then you're someone I want to talk to.
Love it. Love it.
It's a qualifier.
All right. So if anyone wants to get in touch with Jordan, you know how to do it. Jordan, man, I really thank you for being on this podcast. Yeah. I'm just going to leave you one last question. All right. So I normally ask the question of all my guests, but I'm going to ask the question that you ask all of your guests. If you could teach a course at a university, what course would that be?
It's funny how I've asked this question hundreds of times. Yet I don't know that I've thought too much about what I would say. I know like a year ago, I was like, oh, I thought to myself, what if I get asked that question? What would I say? And I don't think I came up with anything. So, it could, I feel like it changes all the time, Ryan. Like right now, I feel like I could do a really great course all about sales and selling, and prospecting. I feel like I could do a great course about human nature where just teaching that course would, and me not being the all-knowing source, but like open sourcing it, incorporating Robert Greene and Robert Cialdini's and all this other work and Chase Hughes's work and Mark Bowden's work, like all into the course, where I would just learn. I've gone through all their work, but I would learn exponentially more by curating a course like that on human nature, human behavior. Like that would be so much fun for me. But I feel like the course I'm most qualified to teach on is a course all about podcasting.
Yeah, for sure. I like the podcasting. I like the sales. You and I are going to have another conversation about education someday. This is not the time to do it, but at some point I want to tell you a story about a podcasting studio at a university. And let's just put that as something to talk about later. So
Okay.
because we'll talk about that later. But anyway, I think sales is something that schools need to teach more. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, dude, nothing in school is about making money. There's nothing. Yeah. There's no courses that have like a good ROI. Like the ROI is like all negative. And I'd argue that actually, just say this before we go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Most courses, I mean, for most majors, for most career paths, college probably just has actually a negative ROI. I think it really sets you back, especially today with 40 plus million Americans owing an average of $38,887 in unforgivable student loan debt. That's over $1.7 trillion. It's a lot of money. $1.71 trillion is what I saw that in the total student loan debt.
No, it's staggering.
There's obviously engineer. What about doctors? I wouldn't want my doctor to study on YouTube. I get it. No shit. Rebuttal 20,000 times. No, there are career paths where it does have a positive ROI, but I think that most of them, maybe not most, a lot of them have a negative ROI. Going for gender studies, making that your major. Sorry to pick on it, but really,
I get it.
Negative ROI. I don't care how you philosophy.
I get it.
I don't know how you cut it there. I see how you're getting a positive ROI there, man.
I'll tell you, man. It's I'll tell you that real fast. The story I was going to tell you is someone who's very pro on everyone needs to go to college. I have different opinions on it, which we can go into it at a different time. But long story short, this guy was going through a school that's $60,000, $70,000 in tuition, and he knows I'm on a certain side of the education debate, and he's on the other side. And he calls me. He knows I'm into podcasting. He calls me. He was like, "Yo, like this school, like they have their own podcasting studio. They're teaching people how to run podcasts. Like, see, there is a lot of value." And I'm like, "You could go to Jordan Paris's website and get it all for free."
It's amazing.
So like, if you're like sending your kid to this school, which again is like $60,000, $70,000 a year to be a podcaster, like I can save you a lot of money.
Right. Dude, I got this book here called The Podcast Playbook.
Totally.
Like the winning game plan to build an audience and make money as a podcaster. You don't need to spend $60,000. You can spend $9 or $0.
Totally. It cracks me up.
Thanks for telling that story. That's fun.
Yeah, I'm glad I shared that actually, because it's like I could go with a longer story. Just that's a short version of it. But it's like, dude, like you don't need to spend that money to have your kid be a podcaster. FYI.
Right. That's a negative ROI to spend $100,000 a year to learn how to podcast.
No doubt, 100%. Totally. No, I asked a question, and the reason I wanted to bring it back and talking about politics.
And I don't trust. Who's teaching that course? What kind of podcasting are they teaching in school? They don't know.
That's the thing, man. Exactly.
But they would never have me. I'm not allowed to come and teach. I don't have an MBA.
Yeah, totally.
They would never have a real practitioner like me come in and teach because I don't fit the necessary qualifications.
Well, look, man, part of the learning process is also getting your ass handed to you, doing it live.
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, think about how much you've learned just by doing it that you just can't learn in a classroom.
Right.
And
Well, what's
like,
it going to be like 4 years before they actually put out an episode?
exactly.
That would be the college style like podcast maybe.
Actually, you know what it would teach you to
Wait 4
do?
years.
It would teach you to work for Jordan's company to help produce my podcast, where you don't own the company and you don't own the content. You're just putting it together behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's really what it's teaching you to be.
Right.
It's not teaching you to be the owner. It's not teaching you to be the creator. It's teaching you to be the behind the scenes person working for somebody else.
That's probably what it would be.
Working for Jordan Paris. I have to say, Jordan, this is blown away my expectations. You're a special guy, man. And I've admired you for the last couple of years. I'm glad that I can call you a friend now.
Yeah,
I thank you for everything that you've shared. You've helped me an enormous amount beyond you can ever imagine. So just want to say, man, with great gratitude, thank you for being on this podcast. And I hope we do it again sometime.
Yeah, I hope we do it again too, Ryan. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, man. All right. I hope you enjoyed episode 5 of Take the Next Step. Jordan was a pretty incredible guest, wasn't he? I mean, to think that he's only 23 years old, I mean, it truly amazes me. I'm so excited to see where Jordan's going to be when he's 33 years old. So if you're digging on Jordan, he gave you his contact information. I certainly recommend that you try to connect with him and check out his podcast, Growth Mindset University. It really is one of my favorites. Also, I want to mention that my new book, You're Making Other People Rich, is out and available on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle format, you can get it paperback, you can get it in hardcover. And I'm really proud to say that we hit bestseller status in our first week. So if you got a copy, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support. And I hope you got a lot out of the book. All right, with that, I look forward to seeing you next week, where I interview celebrity attorney Natalie Alicia Gold. I'll see you there.